Okay, to simplify numerical radical expressions, when we have stuff like this, it's actually really easy. It's just a matter of going ahead and typing it into your graphing calculator. So I'm just going to show you where the cube root is, or it doesn't necessarily have to be a graphing calculator. So a cube root, if you notice, we have a square root, but we don't have a cube root. So if you hit the math feature, I'm probably going to have to go over to my computer to show this. But we'll go ahead and turn it on. And then, let me clear out of where I'm at. Go to your math button, and you'll see option 4 there is cube root. See that little 3? So that's the cube root. So we can hit the cube root and then go ahead and type in -27 and then hit enter. And it tells you it's -3. Now we have the fourth root of 81. Again, go back to your math. Now notice there's no fourth root here, but we have this x power. That means you're whatever root you want. So because we're doing the fourth root, I have to hit 4 and then math and then go to that fifth option of x root, whatever it is. And I'm going to do 81 there. So I'm doing the fourth root of 81, and that is also 3. This is the square root of 49, so that we have the option of square root. And then the cube root of 1/8. So again, I'm going to go to the math. I'm going to go to option 4. And 1/8, I'm typing it in exactly as it is. And I get 0.5, which is 1/2. So let me talk about how we're getting those. And I'm going to kind of include 2 different lessons with this. But this was -3, this was +3, this was 7, and this was 1/2. So why that's happening, the cube root, just like square root of 49 is 7 because 7 times 7 equals 49. Well, the cube root of -27 is -3 because -3 times -3 times -3 equals -27. The fourth root of 81 is 3 because 3 times 3 times 3 times 3 all equals +81. Now here, what's happening is we're basically taking the cube root of 1 and the cube root of 8. Cube root of 1 is 1 and the cube root of 8 is 2. So that's why the cube root of 1/8 ends up being 0.5. Now, to include the other lesson, it's, which you've never probably been taught this, but 49, the square root of 49 is actually the exact same thing as 49 to the 1/2 power. Or here, this cube root of -27 is actually -27 raised to the 1/3 power. So if you type those in your graphing calculator or your calculator, you'll get -27 to the 1/3. So -27 caret parentheses 1/3, you'll get -3. Or 81 to the 1/4. Again, you'll get +3. 49 to the 1/2, you'll get 7. And 1/8 to the 1/3, they should give you 1/2, so 0.5 again. So these are pretty straightforward, pretty basic. It's just a matter of typing in your calculator and writing the answer that you get. Now these you can't type in your calculator because there's variables. So with this, what we do is we have to break it apart and simplify it, each piece. So this is a square root. So basically everything is in here. We could change it and rewrite it and apply our rules of exponents. So all of that is raised to the 1/2 power. So I could just do 4 to the 1/2 power, which is 2. I could do x squared to the 1/2 power. Remember our properties of exponents, when we have an exponent raised to an exponent, we just multiply. So 2 times 1/2 is just x. And then y to the 4th, same thing, y to the 4th to the 1/2 is just 4 times 1/2, which is 2, which is y squared. Now the only problem is that This will say simplify algebraic radical expressions. This is good, but we need one more piece. Because we know that when plugged in here, it has to be a positive value. We have to make sure that x is a positive value. So this is actually to absolute value of x, y squared. Now if this confuses you, you don't have to actually write it out that way. You could just separate it and say, okay, I'm doing the square root of 4, I'm doing the square root of x squared, and I'm doing the square root of y to the 4th power. Okay, well the square root of 4 is 2, the square root of x squared is x, but again, it needs to be a positive value, so I'm going to put absolute value around it. And then the square root of y squared, well that could basically be rewritten as y squared times y squared, right? Y to the 4th is y squared times y squared using our properties of exponents backwards. And the square root of each of those is y times y, and y times y is y squared. Some of you might say, well, I don't really need to put absolute value around the y, because no matter what, if y is positive or negative, when we square it, it's going to make it positive anyway. Okay, so that's how you can kind of look at each of those. Now, same thing here, we can raise each piece to the 1/3 power, which if you're comfortable with properties of exponents, that might make the most sense. So, negative 27 c to the 6th to the 1/3 power. Well, negative 27 to the 1/3 power is negative 3. And c to the 6th to the 1/3 power is c squared. So negative 3c squared is all that is, simplified. Now this 4th root. Now, so 4th root is going to be raised to the 1/4 power. So we could have x to the 8th to the 1/4 power and y to the 10th to the 1/4 power. And we'll get x to the 2nd, so x squared, and ooh, so this is where it's going to hurt us. Because we'll have y to like the 2.5, and you can't do that. So let's look at this a little bit differently. We'll look at it kind of how we did here. So the 4th root of x to the 8th could technically be written as x to the 4th times x to the 4th, right? That gives us x to the 8th, add our exponents using the rule. And the cube root, or sorry, the 4th root of x to the 4th is just x, and the 4th root of x to the 4th is just x, and x times x is x squared. So that doesn't change, it's still x squared. Now for this, we have the 4th root of y to the 10th. Okay, so that can be written as the 4th root of y to the 4th times y to the 4th times y squared. And the 4th root of y to the 4th can go to just y. 4th root of y to the 4th can go to just y. But the 4th root of y squared can't simplify, so it needs to stay like that. So it's going to be x squared, y squared. So our final answer is going to be x squared, y squared, and then the 4th root of y squared. So that is your answer, simplified. And then, sorry, I forgot I had another page here. Simplify more, algebraic radical expressions. The square root of 4 to the 6th, it's going to be 2x to the 3rd, again, because that can be x squared, x squared, x squared, or 4 to the 1/2 power is 2, and then x the 6th to the 1/3 or 1/2 power is 3. So I want you to pause the video and try to work out these two. Ignore that one, I'm going to talk about that one here in a minute. But pause the video and work out these, because I'm going to show you the answers. If you have questions, don't hesitate to ask me coming to class. Oh, sorry, I forgot here that because it's x cubed, you have to have absolute value around your x, because it has to be a positive number. And if we cube it, it doesn't always make it positive. But anyway, sorry. So pause the video and check your answers here. This, you don't need absolute value because it's cubed, so it doesn't matter if your values are positive or negative. Here, x needs to be positive because we're taking it to the fourth power, so it has the absolute value of x, y squared. Now here, using the whole radical, if I have, or rational exponents, if I have x to the 4n, and I need to raise it to 1 over 2n, and I multiply that, when you, 4n times 1 over 2n is just 4n over 2n, which the n's cancel and 4 divided by 2 is 2, so it's just x squared. That's how that simplifies. So really, it might help converting it to rational exponents, so converting your fraction. So this, it would be to the 1/3, this would be to the 1/4, and then in simplifying it that way.